Hello and welcome again to another in this unusual series of short Bible talks, Good News in the Mail. Some of you might remember that the first talk was based on something quite unusual that came in the post. And the title on the front was, "It is still the best decision I have ever made." That decision was about changing my heating system. I decided not to change from one kind to the other, and looking back from where we're standing at this point in the year, I think I did make the right decision. Then I related that to something different, something that was a better decision far beyond any other earthly decision. Over 50 years ago, I acknowledged personally that I was a sinner, that my sin required forgiveness, that someone else had paid the price of the penalty for my sin. That person was Jesus Christ. He died on the cross, took the punishment for my sin that I might be forgiven. And God invited me to come and trust in His Son for forgiveness. And the verse that I quoted in that message was Matthew 11:28. Jesus said, "Come to me, everyone who is laboring and overloaded with their burden and with their sin, and I will give you rest." Another message arrived in my mail just a little time ago. There can be bad news in the mail, bills that we struggle to pay, other kinds of information that might come from other sources. But something else arrived in my mail just recently, and it caught my eye and caught my attention, and so I kept it. It actually was an invitation. It was an invitation to attend a gospel drive-in campaign quite close to where we lived. But the little flyer was put together in quite an unusual manner. It actually looked like a danger notice. And on the front, at the top, it said, "Important message, do not ignore." The gospel is an important message. The gospel tells us about danger that is ahead at the end of life. And the gospel is a message that should not be ignored. On the rest of this little flyer, there was another verse quoted from the Word of God. It says, "All that the Father gives to me shall come to me, and him that comes to me," another version says, "I will not ever turn away." John chapter 6, verse number 37. That took me back in my thinking to a story that has stuck in my mind from I heard it first. Quite a few years ago, where I was doing mission work in a different part of the world, I met a young man who had had a very difficult life. He came to listen to me preaching the gospel. He told me about his background and his story. He had been taken from his mother when he was just a baby. He had been brought up in an alien environment. When he got to his majority, when he got to 18, he exercised his right to go and find his mother. He looked her up at the government records office. He found out where she lived. He went to the house unannounced. He didn't take a third party. He didn't think he needed one. He rang the bell and he stood back. He waited and the door opened. And he spoke to the lady that came to the door. He didn't know her face, he didn't know her, but he was sure he had the right person and the right address. And I suppose the age difference between them fitted. And he looked her in the eye and he said, "Mother, I am your son." He told me with tears, she said to him, "No, I have no son." It's too long ago. It's too painful. I don't want to open that door. Please go away. Don't come back. She closed the door in his face. The story did get a little better because he went to see someone else, and they told him who the mother of his mother was. And he went to his grandmother's house, and she took him in. By the grace of God, he came to hear the gospel sometime later. And he told me that story, but as well as telling me that, on another occasion he told me he had put his faith in Jesus Christ. You see, the little verse that we have quoted together from the Word of God, John chapter 6 and verse number 37, what does it say? All that the Father gives to me will come to me. Whoever comes to me, I will never cast away. God will never, ever, ever refuse any single person from any kind of background, from any part of this planet, who comes to him by faith, trusting in the finished work alone of Jesus Christ, and says, I am a sinner. I need forgiveness for my sins. Will you receive me? Will you take me in? The promise of the Word of God is, they will never be turned away. After I trusted in Jesus Christ all those years ago through the words of Matthew 11:28, come to me, there was a time when I had doubts. Had I done the right thing? Was it all too simple? And for a number of months I actually doubted if I truly had security and salvation. I remember coming home from school an afternoon, September time. The leaves were starting to come down. I was kicking the leaves in front of me going up the path towards my house. And as I kicked one pile of leaves, I said, I am saved. When I kicked the next pile of leaves, I said, I'm not saved. And I kept on going until I reached the turning into my house. And then I sat down on the stairs and I began to cry. I said, maybe I'm not saved at all. The words of this verse that we have read together, you see the two verses link in my mind and my story. John 6 and 37. All who come to me, I will never cast out. I will never turn away. I believed that. I trusted that. I rested on that. I trust that you will too. Jesus says, come. And whoever comes to him, he will never, ever turn away. May God bless his word to your heart in listening to this message.